As Indonesia has committed to reduce greenhouse gas emission, the government of Indonesia has set the ENDC's roadmap to achieve its commitment, particularly on mitigation action through several sectors. However, there are challenges to meet the goal, and one of them is the financing strategy. So the next question is how to leverage funding from various sources to meet this financial gap. So for the next session, we will learn the instrument to unlock the energy transition, and we will present to you the blended finance towards a national energy transition. Before we proceed with the discussion, I would like to invite our keynote speaker. He's the Director General of the Treasury Minister of Finance, Republic of Indonesia. Please put our hands together for Mr. Astera Primanto Bakti.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate your presence here today for discussion that hold great importance not only for Indonesia, but also for the global community. Our focus is on the blended finance strategy in accelerating national energy transition, a topic that is critical as we navigate towards sustainable energy solution. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia plays a crucial role in the global pursuit of the Paris Agreement objective. With abundant resources in renewable energy and natural resources, Indonesia is well positioned to make meaningful contribution to international climate action initiative. Our country rich endowment in geothermal, solar, hydroelectric power presents substantial opportunity for renewable energy development. This commitment to enhancing renewable energy capacities is a pivotal aspect of Indonesia energy transition strategy, contributing in the worldwide effort to decrease dependence on fossil fuels. Ongoing shift from traditional fossil fuels to renewable energy alternative is not just a local or national endeavor, but one that holds the potential to make a substantial impact on reducing overall global carbon emission. Distinguished audience member, as we come together today, it is imperative that we acknowledge the critical role of the energy sector in our collective quest for a sustainable future. In the context of Indonesia climate action, the energy sector is the second largest contributor to emission reduction. Our nationality determined contribution roadmap has made it abundantly clear the energy sector is responsible for 11% of our ambitious 29% emission reduction target. This figure is not just a number, it represents the sector's vital contribution to our national and indeed global climate commitment. Now, let us consider the journey ahead. To realize our vision, substantial financial resources are required. From now until 2030, to meet our conditional emission reduction target, we are looking at a financial requirement of around $285 billion. And for our unconditional target, an additional $281 billion is needed. This number speaks volume about the challenge we face, but more importantly, they highlight the need for strategic planning, innovative thinking, and cross-section collaboration. Honored guests and colleagues, the government of Indonesia fully recognize the challenge we face in transitioning to renewable energy. We are committed to putting in place effective policies and regulation that not only ease this transition but also ensure the development of a strong financial strategy. This strategy is all about pulling together funds from different sources. We are looking to bridge that financial gap and push forward toward our climate objective. It is not just about shifting our energy sources, it is also about building the essential infrastructure we need for supporting this big change. In line with this, we have set up the Indonesia Environment Fund. This is a public service agency that's got one clear job to manage funds related to environmental initiative. The IEF is not just another fund, it's a dynamic tool for mobilizing resources from both the public and private sectors. We are talking about a variety of funding mechanisms here, grant, loan, and we are even looking at the blended finance option. This is Indonesia's way of making sure we have sustainable funding to meet our national goals. One of the IEF primary area of focus is the energy sector. This is not a coincidence but a strategic alignment with our national energy goal. By channeling resources into the energy sector, the IEF is playing a pivotal role in supporting Indonesia's transition to renewable energy sources. This alignment demonstrates our holistic approach, linking financial strategy directly with sector-specific target. It's not just about having a vision for a sustainable future, it's about taking tangible steps to turn that vision into reality. In today's talk, we are set to explore critical aspects of our nation's ambition and policy regarding energy transition. We will dive into three crucial areas. The first one, Indonesian ambition and policy toward energy transition, providing insight into the national goal and the regulatory landscape. And the second one, the role of IEF toward financing on energy transition, exploring the contribution of Indonesia Environment Fund in financing the energy transition. The third one, significant role of investment toward energy sector, highlighting the importance of investment in driving the achievement of nationally determined contribution. As we navigate through the discussion today, let us keep in mind the significance of the collective responsibility we hold. The choices and decisions we made today are not just for the present moment, they will have lasting impact, shaping the future for the coming generation. I'm confident that the insight our esteemed speaker will share today will guide us toward a unified vision for a sustainable, resilient environment, especially in the energy transition effort. Without further ado, I'm pleased to kick off our talk show titled Blended Finance Strategy in Accelerating National Energy Transition. I'm looking forward to a fruitful and engaging discussion with all of you today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Bapak Astera, for the keynote. Okay, I'll start to introduce our speakers. There are four of them, one by one. Being the first one is the Director for Geothermal Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Mr. Haris Yahya. Please come forward, Bapak. Thank you very much. Second one is Mr. Joko Triharyanto. He's the Executive Director from Indonesian Environment Fund. Being the third speaker is Mr. Pradana Murthy. He's the Director of Risk Management from PT SMI Sarana Multi Infrastructure. I don't hear a big round of applause from the audience. Thank you very much. Last but not least, Andrew Jeffries. He's the Director for Just Energy Transition Partnership Team, JETP, Energy Sector Office, Asian Development Bank, ADB. And to lead the discussion, of course, we have invited Ms. Catherine Hughes. She's the Principal Climate Change Specialist from Asian Development Bank.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this panel. Thank you very much for the invitation to moderate. This is an area where the ADB is doing a lot of work on, and we're very committed to supporting Indonesia. I think as our distinguished keynote speaker pointed out, Indonesia has taken great strides in committing to energy transition. And there's a lot of work ongoing in Indonesia to support this, but there's a clear understanding of the huge challenge that this is for the country and the associated financing requirements. I think in addition to estimating and looking at how we mobilize the finance, there's also much to be done in terms of creating the right enabling environment to support the energy transition. And the government is seeking to put in place, the right policies and regulations to support the shift towards renewable energy and meeting the financing needs. But this really needs cooperation of all stakeholders, both within Indonesia and also international partners. And so I think we're looking forward to a really interesting discussion today where we can talk about some of these issues. And we have a fantastic panel of speakers. So I think to kick off, let's start looking maybe at something around the overall energy transition context in Indonesia. And so maybe Pak Harris, I'd like to start with you. So I think to support the NDC in Indonesia, energy transition needs to happen. But we know that Indonesia currently has some overcapacity challenges. So in this context, how do you address the needs for transition? And can you describe some of the current plans for energy transition?
Yeah, thank you very much. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I'm director for the geothermal, but I would like try to answer to respond the question related to the energy transition. But before come to answer the question, I would like to share the information related to the energy transition itself. So Indonesia tried to develop more than 400 gigawatt of electricity to reduce emission by 2060. So 427 gigawatt is not easy to be implemented. So we need collaboration, we need a financing, at least maybe about $500 billion needed to achieve this the target. And then actually our activity to achieve net zero emission, we try to do in not only in the supply side actually, because in the supply side we're talking about 427 gigawatt is in the supply side. But we are also trying to develop how to deliver this kind of supply in the supply side to the demand. So we need the transmission, we need distribution, because so far is distribution and transmission still like in Indonesia. And then this is related to your question about the overcapacity. Actually, not really overcapacity in Indonesia, because as you know that electrification ratio now is less than 100%. So that means we are still need to increase the capacity to fulfill all demand, 100%. But what we face now is not all the capacity of electricity can be sent, can be evacuated to the demand. So now we know that in the Java Islands, so far we know that yes, Indonesia is also oversupply. Also today is in North Sulawesi also oversupply, but in South Sulawesi now is deficit. Why deficit? Because there is no connection between no connection grid between North Sulawesi and South Sulawesi. So how to solve this kind of problem? I think this is not oversupply, but the management between supply and demand need to be improved. So that means we need to solve not only in the supply side, but we are also need to solve the grid side and the demand side. And the demand side, we are also talking about energy efficiency. So that's my response. So I think this is not really oversupply. So, but we need to manage. Thank you.
Very interesting. Maybe if I can follow up with a question. So do you think that the current planning and program for energy transition is well balanced across all of these areas, or do you think there's too much focus on one area and not another?
Yeah. So we already identify now that the demand, center of demand in the Java Island, but we know that the source of electricity, the source of, renewable energy, because in the energy transition, we try to maximize the renewable energy implementation. So the source of renewable energy supply, let's say in the Kalimantan area. In the Kalimantan, North Kalimantan especially, there are a lot of potential of hydropower in that area, in North Kalimantan. But there is a very small demand in that area. So how to send the electricity from the North Kalimantan to the Java Island as a center of demand? So that based on our planning, we try to connect between Kalimantan and Java, and also Java and Sumatra. So that by connecting to these three big islands, so we can optimize the renewable energy potential, and then to maximize the demand of electricity to support the renewable energy implementation, and also to make it more green, and then reduce emission.
And maybe one last question for you before I move on. So what kind of strategies do you think are needed to channel investment into the right areas for the energy transition?
Yeah. So by identifying that there are a lot of potential of energy that we need to finance, we need to finance, like in the supply side I already mentioned, and then also in the transmission and distribution side, and also in the energy efficiency side, in the demand side. So I think now Indonesia already has several support from the others donors, and then I think the latest good progress in Indonesia is we already have a JETP program, and then based on this JETP program, we hope that we can develop more, not only in the JETP program, but we are also need to add more. Not because JETP program is $20 billion, so we are still need more. Like I mentioned before, maybe we need about $500 billion to support our energy transition. So, but I think we are also has several programs in the more specific in the sector. Let's say in the geothermal program. So in the geothermal program, we try to do grant program. So grant program is a geothermal resource risk mitigation. So based on this this program, we try to reduce the risk of geothermal in the exploration process. As you already know that technically, one of the big challenges in the geothermal development is in exploration process. And then we put the program to support the private company, and then also for the state-owned company to do this exploration process, and then yes, there are some incentive put in this program, and a lot of others program, I think, especially for the geothermal, because I'm just director for geothermal, and I can discuss more detail about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak. Maybe if we talk about financing, then Pak Pradana, I think PTSMI has a crucial role in facilitating finance for energy transition as the appointed ETM country platform manager. So maybe you can explain or share with us some of PTSMI's plans for accelerating finance for energy transition.
Thank you, Kate. First, even before we were appointed as Indonesia Energy Transition Mechanism Country Platform Manager back in 2022, we had previously set up together with Minister of Finance blended finance platform called SDG Indonesia 1 back in 2018. The idea of that platform is to support SDG related investments, including renewable energy scaling up. Yeah. So from that experience, we have amassed like a $3.2 billion commitment from 32 partners. Yeah, and a partial of that commitment already translated into disbursement to projects, mostly in the form of project preparations, yeah, and technical assistance to enhance the quality of project being developed that they in turn ready to receive financing. Yeah. I think we have some success on that and some lesson learned in SDG Indonesia 1, and we wanted to capitalize that experience in the ETM country platform. I think the challenge is a little bit different because in the whole energy transitions, I think our DG, Pak Prima, already said that to achieve NDC just in the energy sector, it will require 285 billion US dollar. And that, I think, to put it simply, that state budget will require to be leveraged to achieve that goal. So between last COP, last year, and now, I can inform you that there already one step taken by our government, yeah, to provide the gesture, the signal that blended finance needs to start from public sector, from government. And that's manifested in the formations, the issuance of Minister of Finance Regulations 103, 2023. Basically, it spells out the kind of government supports that can be mobilized in the energy transitions. And one of the facilities that the government is willing to provide is the concessionality of financing. With, again, the government already put a gesture that even the government was willing to provide concessionality below a government bond price. So that's one indication that the government is willing to take a step in the hope that the private sector will follow. Yeah. That includes commercial entities, philanthropies, and of course supported by intermediaries like MDBs as well as bilateral agencies. Yeah. We had some experience in SDG Indonesia ones, like channeling loans from AFD, ADB, yeah, including the TAs, the corresponding TAs. And we have also channeled investment grants. I think we need to do more of that. But now, since the government has already take the first steps, I think this is a good opportunity for private sector to really look into opportunities in this sector.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think maybe that's a good segue to you, Andrew. So, you know, when we talk about blended finance or concessional finance, then there's always a link and a role for the MDBs. In the current context in Indonesia, with all the work that the government's doing, can you describe some of the different programs or instruments that ADB is using to support the energy transition?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You know, we have a very long history of supporting the government of Indonesia. We've been a development partner there for over 50 years. And we've had a long history of supporting the energy and power sectors. But currently what we're doing is multifaceted. We have what I'll call our standard support to the government and to PLN through sovereign lending. We have scheduled for early next year a policy-based loan of $300 million from the ADB and another 300 from development partners in co-financing, so 600 total that will go to the government of Indonesia, and it's supporting policy actions that helps create the enabling environment for the transition. And we also have a results-based loan with PLN for ADB loan for $470 million, and with co-financing it comes to over $1.1 billion plus a $3 million grant to help PLN, you know, transition and decarbonize its power system. So that's that part of the assistance. And then we have our private sector operations that's funded a lot of independent power projects in Indonesia. We've funded over the years over 770 megawatts of geothermal power and utility scale solar and wind projects, some of the first in the country. And so they're looking to continue with that. Then we have our support to the JET-P. We have a formalized role supporting the secretariat of the JET-P, and through a technical assistance grant actually from the government of Japan being administered by the ADB, we're providing support in that fashion to the JET-P and also leading the finance working group. And there's a launch of the work that's been done to date, you know, in this room in a few days' time. And then we get to the energy transition mechanism, and we're very proud to be working with PTSMI on that initiative to transition away from coal-fired power generation. You know, again, we have, addition to all of that, technical assistance, and on the just side, we have again, funds to support country-level studies on the transition and how it will affect jobs and livelihoods and impacts over time. And so just we've had just a broad spectrum of overall support. And as a development partner, you know, we support other sectors as well. And Indonesia is a very important shareholder for the ADB, so we're very happy to support. And again, I'm happy to be able to be on this stage to talk about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. And I think, you know, the breadth of ADB support reflects how much is going on in the country, you know, with all the different partners and players playing their part of overall energy transition. And I think, Pak Joko, you have also a very important role to play in terms of energy transition. And as Executive Director of the IEF, maybe you can tell us, we heard some in the keynote speech, but maybe you can expand a little bit on IEF's plans for supporting the achievement of the net zero goal in Indonesia.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. This is quite interesting if we look from the opening speech, yeah, because our government has already taken a very serious step, like Pak Pradana mentioned. And if you look from this speaker, Ministry of Finance sending to respective institution, yeah, PTSMI and also Indonesia Environment Fund. PTSMI like a special mission vehicle under the Ministry of Finance, and Indonesia Environment Fund is a public service agency under the Ministry of Finance. We are together under the Ministry of Finance with a bit different. If we look from Pak Pradana already mentioned, they always are focusing on the financial sector, financial discussion, financial closing, and also many related with the financial aspect. But if we talk about the energy transition, of course, we are not just talking about the financial aspect. We also are concerned about the non-financial aspect like green transition job, the potential job loss, and also how we can getting some concern from the local NGO perhaps, or the voice from the NGO and also from the community voice. So this is our strong point. Together with the PTSMI, we try to make a complete approach, very comprehensive approach from the PTSMI financial perspective and also from the non-financial perspective from the Indonesia Environment Fund. Because deal with the community, deal with the local government, deal with the NGO, deal with many stakeholders, this is our strong point. Hopefully, with this approach, we can achieve, and also speed achievement of energy transition.
Thank you. And I think you raised a really interesting point there in terms of just transition, that often people view this as something that comes after the energy transition activities, maybe to deal with the impacts and to address what's happened as a result. But really, for the just transition, you need those social components, those environmental components to be thought of upfront with enabling intervention. So is this something about your approach as well?
Yeah, because this is quite interesting. If we calculate, like Pak Pradana mentioned, to provide the financial support to achieve energy transition, very huge. If we reverse from the third biennial updated report from the government, we need almost 5,000 million or 251 billion USD. This is a very big investment. And if we don't care with the social aspect, perhaps the social finance, the social investment could be affected and make a bigger result from the financing itself. So I think we also must be care with the social aspect, non-financial aspect, rather than only focus on the financial itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Pak Harris, you mentioned as well, in my first question I said about oversupply, but you highlighted that the supply is not even, right? That it's not 100% of all of the population. And so, in that range of investments that needs to happen, do you think this social aspect also needs to be part of the approach for the energy transition?
Yeah, I think the social aspect is very important, like Pak Tris already mentioned, because as you know that the energy per capita, if you see that the energy per capita so far is 1,173. So this is still below with Malaysia, Singapore, in our neighbor country. So we are still need to develop our capacity of electricity. Yes, so we're talking about the renewable energy. Yes, it is okay, but the social aspect is very important. So so that's why we try to develop collaboration also with them to develop the project of the renewable energy. Because in many cases, the social aspect affect to the development of the project is going smoothly or not. So even if we're talking about, let's say, for the geothermal development in Indonesia again, if we have a good approach to the social aspect, we can develop smoothly the program, the geothermal development is on time. So, but if we cannot, I mean, in the several activity also, the project investor could not handle the social aspect in the smooth, so that until now, they already have the concession about 10 years. They cannot do anything. They cannot develop their own project. So this is, I think this is very important. It might be, maybe this is only one of the social aspect in the general aspect, but in my opinion, this the social aspect in terms of how to collaborate with them in the project scale is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, I think that raises the point, right, that you have this social transition aspect on every scale. You have for individual projects, and then you have more on a sector basis and the whole transition of the sector. Andrew, maybe I can come to you now. So, you know, we've raised social and environmental aspects, and you mentioned briefly about the just transition support that ADB is doing. You know, from your perspective, how is ADB integrating these components into its support in Indonesia?
You know, it happens on many levels. At the individual project or asset level, there's a very long established methodology for assessing impacts of environmental impacts, impacts on the people in the area, and you know, how to address that, consultations with the communities and information sharing and the like. Where it gets more difficult with the energy transition is the longer term indirect and induced impacts of the transition. For example, a coal plant may, a large one, may employ you know, a large number of people from, you know, highly skilled technical engineers down to lower skilled laborers and so on. But, you know, and if that plant shuts down, the whole community can get affected. We've talked to communities that would be concerned about the tax revenue they received from these generation facilities. We've talked about not just the jobs themselves, but these people buy their lunches and they spend some of their earnings with small businesses in the towns and communities of these plants. So how to assess those impacts, you know, at the community and project level. Then but then there's national level things to consider, and you know, at the ADB we've working with the government on a strategic environmental and social assessment to look at high level at the country level on how some of these impacts may affect the country over time. You know, Indonesia has 80% of Indonesia's coal exports are to countries that have net zero commitments, which means over time those countries are going to be importing less and less coal. So there's hundreds of thousands of jobs in Indonesia in that industry that will be affected. Not just coal mining, but the logistics and transport and the like. So there's negative impacts ahead. But, you know, there's also positive impacts, too, that have to be kind of blended with the negative when you're looking at it from that level. For example, coal mining over the longer term may be is expected to decline. But nickel mining and other rare earth mining is on the rise. So, and I know the government of Indonesia in the JETP, it's been very important that they capture more of the renewable energy equipment supply chain and create more jobs and manufacturing opportunities within the country. So there's negative and there's positive, and we have technical assistance to help with this, and we're working with the government on how to approach and come up with programs and methodologies for addressing the country level and the longer term planning and reskilling and other activities, and also at the more project and community level.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Now, maybe I think to link it back to the financing discussion and Pak Pradana, maybe something that you said earlier, you mentioned the challenge of project preparation. Do you see that as, and when we talk about these other issues that need to be considered, social issues, environmental, finance, technical, do you see that as a challenge for Indonesia for moving forward on energy transition?
Yes. First, I need to reiterate the importance of blended finance and why we are having these discussions, because the limited space of fiscal of the government. But I think blended finance, on the flip side, also brings along multiple terms and conditions. So it's not just having financing coming from a single source, but coming from multiple sources with different interests, different perspectives, different objectives, and different terms and conditions. This actually can be simplified with the help of intermediaries here, like MDBs, as well as NDBs, like SMI. Yeah. So that's will simplify matters of all different terms and conditions can be reduced into agreeable sets of terms and conditions to be applied on projects. So when we can achieve that, so actually that's one of the most difficult part from the financing perspective. When we can achieve that terms and conditions, now the onus back to the developers to actually achieve that terms and conditions, especially with regards to the safeguards and now just transition aspects. Yeah. So I think those, I think in the earlier sessions today, we have listened from PLN, Astra, Vale, Medco. Yeah. Those guys are quite capable, yeah, to actually do this kind of requirements that's being set up by funders. But a lot of the renewable energy developers are actually small to medium scales. And that's what we experience. We have participated in the financing of 1 gigabyte worth of renewable energy projects from hydros, geothermal, biomass, wind and solar. Most of those are small, medium scale types of developers. Those needs to be empowered, basically. And the existence of TAs, project development funds, the risking mechanisms, those are very important to actually bring the opportunity on an equal basis, because Indonesia has got a lot of potential of this small to medium scale of renewable energy, because it's all scattered around the islands. Mind you, although the epicentrum of the demand is in Java, but we have 6,000 inhabited islands in Indonesia. So I think the roles of small to medium scale developers cannot be undermined and needs to be empowered. And those actually can bring a lot of success if we can actually do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think you know, as well as the importance of blended finance, the importance of flexibility, right? And different types of finance that are suited to different things. Pak Joko, maybe I can ask you, you know, IEF as a public service agency has some of that flexibility, you know, on managing its funds. So how do you see different financing schemes like blended finance or carbon tax, carbon trading being used to address some of these challenges?
Yeah. So flexibility is our main offer, from the Indonesia Environment Fund. But beside the flexibility, we can offer also the internal blended finance from the Indonesia Environment Fund, because if we reverse from our modality, our portfolio, particularly from the funding instrument, now we manage three different schemes. The biggest one, we call it a program or a grant. And the second one consists of investment. And the last one, the third one is endowment fund. So from the initial internal Indonesia Environment Fund, of course, we also has the potential blended finance internally under the Indonesia Environment Fund. And we also can distribute our beneficiary, we can distribute to all stakeholders. We can distribute directly to the community-based level. We can distribute or deliver our beneficiary to the local government, both side from the provincial, district until the village level. And we can also distribute to the local NGO, philanthropy, or a private sector. So if we look from our modality, our instrument, and also our offering, our flexibility is our main tag. Yeah. And if you look from our thematic program, we have a big thematic program under the AVOLU, Just and Affordable Clean Energy, Circular Economy, and Zero Waste Emission. And two from the adaptation, because energy transition not only talking about the mitigation aspect, but also looking the support from deal with the adaptation issue. So we also have a thematic program under the adaptation, health, water, and food security, and also climate adaptation and disaster risk management. So this is our thematic and also our offering to the stakeholder.
Yeah, fantastic. Maybe continuing on the issue of flexibility, and Andrew, a question for you. You know, the energy transition mechanism is a new mechanism for ADB, one of the flagships, and something a little bit different. Do you think that the MDBs are showing a little bit more flexibility in trying different approaches for meeting these needs for energy transition?
Yeah, we're certainly trying. You know, it's been a challenging journey to set that program up, and we're working on a first pilot transaction in Indonesia right now. Many financial institutions cannot participate in a ETM or early coal retirement transaction because the taxonomy or their regulations are they're not allowed to support a coal-fired power plant. And we made a decision as an institution that to do so, you know, based on the premise it's retiring earlier than it otherwise would have, and there's tangible carbon emissions savings resulting from that. And so it's taken several years now to do kind of country-level approach at how to go about this and identify potential projects and work with stakeholders. And there's also, we're working on a methodology we'll be submitting to the UNFCCC early next year to try to get carbon credit, such transactions to qualify for carbon credits, which we feel is another important financing source to supplement, you know, climate financing and concessional blended financing to you know, make these viable and you know, acceptable to all stakeholders, whether it's the PLN or the owners of the plant and so on. So yes, 3 years ago, no one ever contemplated this coal methodology, and actually Indonesia has shown leadership in this effort, and I know the ASEAN taxonomy for climate finance includes this type of transaction, mainly from, thanks to Indonesia's kind of push and leadership in that.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe now I'm just having a look at the time for the session, but I'd like to give the audience an opportunity to ask any questions. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to ask a question of our panelists, please. Maybe everybody's too sleepy at this time of day. Oh, no? No questions? Okay. Let me go back to our panelists then. Maybe you can if you think of a question, please just raise your hand. Okay, so maybe then I'll go back to each of you and ask you to give us what do you think is the most important thing to do in terms of moving forward on energy transition in Indonesia? If you had to highlight one thing. Maybe Pak Joko, do you want to start?
Yeah. Collaborate, perhaps, yeah. Collaborate is the most important things if we talk about the achievement of energy transition, particularly in Indonesia. Yeah. So we try to increase collaboration among its stakeholder.
And do you think also, building on this point on collaboration, it's also across government?
Yeah.
Right? And making sure that all the ministries are working together. Do you think that's happening in Indonesia?
Yeah, like what Pak Andrew mentioned, the last question regarding on the carbon credit, because if we reverse from the presidential regulation number 98, Indonesia Environment Fund is already appointed as the carbon management institution that we will manage carbon revenue from the carbon credit, and then we deliver back to the community, small medium enterprise, and also other stakeholder. And after the presidential regulation, each sector under the ENDC, they must be set their pathway on the carbon credit. And thanks to Harris, because the Minister and Energy Regulation already appointed us as the carbon credit management as well. So this is like a lesson learned that we also collaborate very well. It's under the Ministry of Finance with the Ministry of Energy.
Thank you. So maybe Pak Harris, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. So from me is maximize the domestic resource that we have, so that we have a lot of potential of renewable energy. And then renewable energy can reduce emission, can also create a job, can also develop many activity, so that based on the collaboration, we need to maximize that we already have locally, domestically, so that, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really then ties together, right? The issue of the energy transition with the social issue and the jobs, and also replacing the role coal has in the economy, right? If you look to maximize your other local resources. Pak Pradana.
It's difficult to pinpoint to just one single. But I think the role of NDBs like ADB and as well as NDBs like SMI, it's really important to trying to bridge the gap in knowledge and trying to bridge the communications between public sector and private sectors, and trying to instill best practices. I remember back in 2010, the first time we started to finance renewable energy. That time it was a mini hydro project. At that time, the only active local financiers are just us and one other bank. And now, if you talk to most local big banks in Indonesia, they all have hydros in their portfolio. So I think once we have instilled that best practices and the ball will start to roll, and the financiers will start to understand the risks and how to mitigate it, and as there more and more money flowing to the sector. But I also wanted to highlight, because this is also important, Andrew already mentioned about just transitions. For me, just transition is more like reactive. If you want to do energy transitions, we have to manage all the other aspects, so it's just fair. But if we look at the other way around, on a more proactive perspective, energy transition actually requires economic transformations. Without that, it won't go far. It won't happen. So if we want to move from fossil fuel energy to green energy, we have to move the economy from fossil fuel-based economy to a green economy. So without that, it just won't happen. So I think to create the buy-in from all the stakeholders, including local governments, we need to set out the importance of economic transformations as well, to not just to for the sake of it, but also to support the energy transition itself. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that if it's only one, I need to highlight.
Well, it's okay. Maybe you can have more than one, but absolutely. And I think that viewpoint of viewing it as a full economic transition is so important, right? And it ties to Pak Harris's point as well about maximizing what Indonesia has. It's also the huge potential there for new green industries, for skilling, and for offering that as a contribution. Andrew, you're last on the spot for your one thing.
Well, I'll start off by saying Pak Joko beat me to my answer. I was going to say cooperation because of, and then you also beat me to my, I thought, okay, what else can I say? And so I'll do a little variation of that. You know, it's very important. He mentioned domestic resources because you know, this transition, as the numbers are large, the investment and the needs are huge, and it's very, you know, you can't indebt the country, you know, to accomplish this. So therefore, and especially, you know, debt in foreign currency that, you know, creates additional risks and so forth. So the domestic resource mobilization and the creating the environment for as much private investment as possible to just keep the pressure on the government budget and debt levels as low as possible, and just the conditions for lowering the risks and uncertainties which lower the financing costs. Kind of a combination of all of that will be very important, because you just can't, it won't happen unless the investments and the borrowing involved and everything is sustainable and is low cost and low impact for the taxpayers and the people of Indonesia as possible.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, you know, it's not, if you think about summing up the discussion and maybe what it shows about where we're at on the discussion, you know, 5 years ago, when you have events like this, they just tackle one issue. They either look at finance or they look at technical or social. But I think the number of topics that we've covered in one conversation, right, between project preparation, flexible finance, social issues, macro transition versus individual projects, just shows the need for that systems thinking in terms of energy transition, and that really strong importance of collaboration. So I'll just check if any of the audience has thought of any questions. Great. I don't know if we have a microphone. Oh yes, here we go.
Thank you. Maybe it's just a pretty broad question, but I'm curious, as some of the panelists mentioned that energy transition is not only mitigation, but also adaptation. When we look into like bigger climate finance framework, you see a lot of money is flowing to mitigation. I wonder, like Indonesia, how do you kind of like framing energy transition, having a mitigation adaptation component and include that in your NDC and align with your funding needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe Pak Joko, you can start on this question.
Yeah, I think we reverse from the sectoral, I mean from the Ministry of Energy, because they must be submitted all the activity under the mitigation and also from the adaptation. And we are really believe that talking about the energy transition, not just talk about the mitigation aspect, but also concern about the adaptation. Unfortunately, if we look from the financing financing composition, perhaps this is very difficult to increase the capacity from the adaptation itself, because previously, if my position is under the National Designated Authority Green Climate Fund, if we look from the global context from Green Climate Fund itself, they are not familiar to support the adaptation. They are really focused only support from the mitigation. I don't know why they are love to support from the mitigation. Perhaps if we talk about from the adaptation perspective, I think we need to set one collective and common understanding indicator related with the adaptation itself. Because if we talk about the mitigation, all the people already agree reducing GHG emission as the main indicator. If we talk about the adaptation, we have so many indicators. I don't know, this is a strong point or weakness point, but yeah, perhaps we need to set up a common understanding among all stakeholders from the international and set one common perspective related with the adaptation indicator.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point because it links to this broader discussion on thinking about climate outcomes, right? Often so much of the focus is on tracking finance as an input, right? In terms of how much finance needs to be raised and all of that. But in terms of what outcomes are achieved, then on the adaptation side, as you say, having an understanding of indicators and what adaptation outcomes can come from the investments is an area that needs more work. Did anyone else have anything to add to the question?
I think energy transition in Indonesia is more than transition from the fossil energy to the renewable energy. I think a lot of related activity also need to be considering if we're talking about the energy transition. So we know that energy transition, yes, we try to maximize the local resource that we have, okay? But yeah, again, we are also faced like Tri already mentioned before that about the social aspect. This is also very important to be handled also, not only talking about the renewable energy, not only talking about the energy sector, but also we're talking about the social aspect, security, and many others. Financing, this is very important, I think. So that let's do it our job. So we have the Ministry of Finance, we have a Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Industry, a lot of stakeholder in Indonesia need to have a collaboration, one each other, to come to the energy transition goal. So 2060 is one of the goal of Indonesia, not only Ministry of Energy, because we're talking about energy transition, but also Ministry of Finance. We're talking about the emission reduction. So that means Ministry of Environment and also involved. So that all of that we do now is for the Indonesia, not only for the certain ministry. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think if we go back to this point on looking at the lens of an economic transition, then unless also you take climate risks into account, then you must build that into the plans for transition, because it will redefine what, you know, what's available.
Yes. I think this is new era for Indonesia.
Yeah. Absolutely. So maybe on that positive note, I think we've come close to the end. Let me just check if there's any other questions from the audience. No? Okay. Oh, there's one more question, please.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. I'm really interested in the discussion about going beyond the transition itself. So if we talk about the transitions, I think it's very quantified. It's pretty quantifiable when are we going to achieve the transitions. But when we talk about beyond transitions, when do you think Indonesia will be ready in terms of the community and everything to reach the transition beyond the you know, the quantification itself, beyond the energy transitions, but also how to the social aspect is also adapt to that as well. Thank you.
Anyone like to answer? Maybe Pak Joko?
Yeah.
No, I can answer because yes, my staff. So Pak Pradana or Pak Arus.
So then he can give you a very difficult question. That it's okay.
Yeah, so again, energy transition is not just talking about the energy. So a lot of a goal that we try to achieve behind of the energy transition. Energy transition itself is not only Indonesia. This is the global transition. So that we have to also involve in this global. If we do not care about this kind of a trend, so we will leave behind. And then I think we talking about the impact of, yeah, so this is for example, if you use the energy fossil to produce good, yes, we say that okay, based on the Indonesia, let's say we have a lot of potential of coal, and then we can produce good in a low price, low cost. But this is very difficult to sell our product to others country, because there are carbon tax in the global. In the, let's say if we sell our product to the, let's say to the Europe, it's very difficult to make it our product more competitive, because the tax of product is very high, carbon tax is very high. At the end, so we cannot compete with our product international, and then, yeah, it's very difficult for us. So that energy transition means that we are totally need to transition. Economic transition also is like I already mentioned. So that we have to thinking about the future, not today. So because in Indonesia also some people also mentioned that why we have to go to the energy transition. We have a lot of potential of fossil energy, and then for example, for the information that 88% of now is we rely on energy fossil. But again, because we already commit to reduce emission and also to put Indonesia is more competitive country in the next future, and then I think we already know that by 2025 Indonesia will be as a country that move from the current situation to the next level of countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just like to add something. I remember a small study that we undertaken, SMI undertaken, to see the kind of impact of the closure of one coal-fired power plant in Java. And we noted that there's a negative impact on the economy of places like South Sumatra or East Kalimantan, just for one closure of coal-fired power plants. So with that, our mindset is that all these regions need to know that they are facing something serious if they are not doing anything. So the good thing is that all of us here are actually playing a role. I know Andrew and ADB is actually going to the ground and talk to the local communities and local governments on just transitions aspects. Pak Joko also, together with us, is doing pilot projects on energy transitions that involving local government and communities. And we as NDBs also, with the supervision of Pak Prima, to actually trying to finance local governments, but how to finance in a transformative ways, to help their economy, but not just for the sake of financing. So I think in the spirit of that, in the spirit of collaborations, each of us just needs to do our role and to give the impact on the energy transition and all the just transition that's involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a really key point, right? The energy transition is not just about energy, because, and when you look at finance, and the discussion is so often on climate finance and climate finance for renewable, but actually education finance, health finance, all the sources of finance, and then the public budget for all of these aspects need to be aware of the energy or the broader transition goals, right? And be aligned with that purpose for it to work. Andrew?
I guess just to add about going beyond the energy transition, one aspect of the energy transition that kind of flows to many other parts of the economy is energy efficiency, or how to use less energy in manufacturing or any other activity. And then there's the decarbonization of other sectors, how to make, Indonesia is a very fast-growing economy, which means Indonesia and any developing country is a heavy consumer of cement and concrete, for example. And so how to make that industry less carbon intensive, how to make garment manufacturing, or how to air condition large buildings, using less carbon. So it can permeate all these different activities. And regarding the carbon tax and the issue of being competitive, my 22-year-old daughter has an app on her phone that estimates the carbon footprint of products she's seeking to buy. And that, I don't know, tries to take into account all these different factors in supply chain. So that's another element of staying competitive, are all these combined aspects. So, agriculture, you name it. I think there'll be kind of a transition on all of these fronts, over time, over the next few decades, worldwide, and of course also in Indonesia.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've reached the end of our session time. So thank you very much for joining us. Just to thank again our panelists, Pak Joko, Pak Harris, Pak Pradana, Andrew, and thank you very much as well for inviting me to moderate the session. It's been really interesting discussion.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Please show our appreciation to all the speakers and of course Kate for moderating the session.